to the uploaded to the website. We are going to leave time for questions at the end, but you know, if you're like me and you don't ask when it's fresh in your mind, you may forget. So you're welcome to just put any questions that you have in the chat, and then, like I say, we'll make sure that we get to all of the questions at the end. And so today's Accreditation 101 is really kind of focused on the ASR and equity plan. And we did send that out to the system about mid-May. There is one minor change that I noticed that I need to update. And as we go through the slides, I'll show you what that minor change is. So I will be sending it out again after the meeting, along with the accreditation tool, which we'll go over today. But I'll send those things out via email to the system after the presentation today. And so to go over the agenda, we're going to take a look at the accreditation timeline. So there's been some updates and some changes related to the due dates for the self-studies. So we'll share those today. We'll look at the annual service review and equity plan. We listed out the highlighted best practice standards that are in the ASR. So we'll just highlight those. And then what we'll do is just go through the accreditation tool. Obviously not word for word, but just a basic overview to kind of show you the revisions we made. And then we'll take a look at the accreditation tool. And just, our apologies for the delay. We wanted to, make sure that as much information that we could include in there to be helpful to all of you. So it took us a bit longer than we would have liked. And so then we'll also take a look at just an overview of SharePoint. And then, like I said, lastly, we'll look to answer any questions that you may have about any of the info that we share with you today. So here is the updated timeline. And so we wanted to just couple of changes. So the office hours for June, we have here open office hours. So if those of you who are in your cohorts don't send questions specific to your accreditation program manager, the default will to just be focused on any questions that you still have around the ASR, the accreditation tool, and SharePoint. But we left it as open office hours in case you have questions about other standards as you start to, work on getting all of your stuff gathered for the self-study. And so then the July 101 session, just to highlight, it used to be the 19th, but that's going to be on the 10th. So that's one of the changes. And then lastly, just the due dates for the self-study. So, and we'll go over why that has changed, but all program self-studies will be due to us, Central Administration, on January 5th of 24. And then you see here for November, that topic is to be determined. And so again, like we shared, so the updated self-study timeline, so everyone's will be due January 5th. There's no longer a need for staggered dates. And so we just wanted to show you the updates for each of the contract start dates. And so now you'll see it's all January 5th, and everyone will use their 22-23 ASR and Q4. So, yeah. And the reason for that change is we have more prescriptive guidance from HFA that they won't be reviewing all of the site self-studies in depth. They'll take a look at them, but they won't review all of them in depth. It'll just be the 16 that are chosen. And so for that reason, we changed to just having everyone submit it on the 5th. And so just a huge thank you to the members of the ASR work group and the REACH committee for all of their hard work and input that went into revising the ASR and the equity plan. We had members from all parts of CA, as well as program managers and staff from programs. So this was truly a joint effort, and you know, we couldn't have done it without all of your input. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So like I had shared, I wanted to just list out the BPSs that are in the ASR. And so in the next 3 slides, you'll see all of those. And these are the standards that are required as part of your self-study and are also included in your ASR. And so what this means is if you complete your ASR, providing narratives to all of the areas required, you'll be satisfying your self-studies for these standards by submitting your ASR and equity plan. So again, these are the standards that are in the ASR. So 11A, 11B, referring organizations, 11C, tracking referrals and site capacity, 12B, initial engagement process, narrative and report, 12C, initial engagement process, and 14A, measure acceptance rate. And so this is where you're just going to insert, which we put that in there for you, and so you'll see that when we go through the ASR. This piece is just the definition of the acceptance rate, so it's that boilerplate language. Next is 14B, so the acceptance analysis, and then measure retention rate, which again is the definition of retention rate in that boilerplate language. 34B is the retention analysis. 71C, focus children with well child care. 54A is family and staff input. 54B is the equity plan. And 54C is the equity plan review with your community advisory board and staff. Then 94B is staff retention and satisfaction, and then the 3 remaining are the governance and administration, so the organization and function of your advisory board, and the advisory board with a wide range of skills and knowledge, so your roster. And then the last one is, the standard that's related to program manager and community advisory board working effectively. And so when we take a look at the ASR and equity plan, you're going to see the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging focus questions. So they are included for each standard in the ASR equity plan. And just to clarify, so programs aren't required to answer every DEIB question. There's things to consider, and they really can help program managers to think about context to include when drafting required narratives. And so again, another huge thank you to the REACH committee for their awareness and their knowledge when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. The questions that they created, we feel like will really help programs to employ those culturally humble practices and reflections in all areas of program and service delivery via the creation and implementation of their equity plans. So next, we're just going to do like a brief walkthrough of the ASR and equity plan. And so, sorry, I need to go back because now it worked. No, it's not. So I'm not sure why it's not working, but I can just call it up a different way. So just give me 1 second here. Just give me 1 minute. Forgive me. I have to just, I don't know why it's not working. Let's see. Just 1 minute. Okay. All right, let me just share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So sorry, technical difficulties. So here is the annual service review and equity plan. And so this is all 3 things. So it's the guidelines, it's your, oh, sorry. Oh, no, let me get rid of this. Oh, sorry, I don't know what happened here.
Do you want me to pull it up?
Got it.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. So this is, I just can't see my, I can't see my notes on what I had when I'm sharing this, but it's okay. We'll get through it. This is all 3 things. This is your guidelines. So, the guidance for program managers to follow when creating their annual service review, and it's your ASR and it's your equity plan. So here, what we did is, all of these areas are locked, but program managers can enter text in all of the highlighted yellow areas. And so, again, this is just some guidance on things to consider and, just more prescriptive detail on drafting your ASR and equity plan. And so, you can see there, we tried to just align it with the contents in the best practice standard manual. And so here we have 1.1a, and so this is what is required to be in your narrative, and so we have that here. And then in some of the standards, you'll see just extra notes. That is just to give more guidance. And then so you'll go at in each section. We have what's required in the narrative. And then for this one in particular, we've provided links so that you can go and look at, these are resources to kind of look at your community data. And then in each section, we list out what MIS report goes along with, the MIS report that you pull to get the data for each section. We did want to just include a link to the report itself, but we're not able to do that. And we originally wanted to also include a link to the standards themselves, but because of copyright laws, we're not allowed to do that either. And so like I was sharing here with the EIB focus questions, so you see those listed in each section of for each standard. And so again, these are things to, we strongly encourage you to consider those and, think about and incorporate that into you know, what you're providing for your narrative as you're drafting that. And then what you'll do is just click here. And so you can, there's unlimited text that can be added here. You can insert graphs, images, tables. You should be able to do all of that. And so, you know, again, 1.1b, so it's really the same. We kind of just try to keep that same pattern throughout the report. And then I wanted to show you, so 1.2b, remember how I was sharing with you that there was one minor edit. So for this standard, besides just the narrative, we also want you to submit a report. And so you'll see down here, I'm going to scroll. So here's where you'll put your narrative, and here is where we want you to just insert page 1 of the 1.2b report. So that's the edit. It's just this line. We added a little bit more. I think the version that got sent out, it just said put your narrative here. And so we just wanted to update that so it wasn't confusing. And so there,
sorry, I would just add quickly the reason why we're, or if you wanted to talk about the reason why we're inserting the page 1 of that report.
Go ahead, you can tell them.
Okay. So if you look at the standard, the MIS actually pulls together the information that you need. So as you're writing your narrative, having that one, you won't have to repeat because the report will show the time frames that are needed for that section. And then you can just include like the additional information in the narrative because we capture what is needed in that 1.2b report. On the first page, it's just that summary. And then the following pages are by family, but you know, just putting in that one, that first page helps really capture all of, you know, much of the information that is needed based on the standard.
Sorry, and I don't know why it keeps like it's switched to here. Sorry, guys.
We can still see, like now you just stopped sharing, but just so you know, nothing is switching on the screen for, I mean, at least it looks the same for me.
Well, I don't know why that is because it's changing for me. And so I'm just there. Can you, oh, nope, now I stopped sharing. Okay, you can see here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just when
Melanie, if you share just like your Word app, then we'll only be able to see the word. So even if other stuff pops up on your desktop screen, we can only see that like app that you shared.
Okay. I'm just going to keep going. So the only other thing that we wanted to just highlight in the ASR. So again, like it's pretty straightforward. Here is where we have the measure acceptance rate. And so we included the boilerplate language right here. And so you would just kind of copy and paste that. If there's anything more that you wanted to add, but then you put it here. And then for the acceptance analysis and then also for the retention, we did include Margaret's presentation from the statewide leadership meeting. And so you should be able to just click on there and pull that up for reference. And then again, just enter your narrative in the text boxes. Nothing is required in narrative or analysis for the FROG. And then again, measuring retention rate. So here's that boilerplate language, and then here's the analysis. We included again the presentation from Margaret here. These are all the DEIB focus questions to consider for that section. For the targets, you know, HFA really just wants narrative on the well child visits. And so the way that we thought we could cover that is instead of having you speak to every single target, you can share, you know, just narrative on how you monitor performance targets. And so that would include, you know, 7.1c, and then just some narrative on barriers identified in meeting performance targets for your site. And again, that's all in there. And then we have the section on performance indicators. And so you'll see for each indicator, what factors that you achieve, what factors do you attribute, and for each not achieved, describe steps taken to identify barriers, strategies developed, and strategies implemented. And then again, the DEIB focus questions to consider for that section. And so here is this is where we get into the equity plan, which again is part of your ASR. And so the first section there is the family and staff input. And so, you know, throughout the ASR, throughout the narratives that you've created, if you're considering those DEIB focus questions, then essentially you're considering them for all aspects of, you know, service delivery and all areas of the program. And so for the family and staff input, you know, data or information that you gather, you're just going to put that summary in here. And then there's also a part on the actual equity plan, which is 5.4b, which what we did was we did, you know, go ahead and use the equity plan template that HFA created. And so thank you, Claudia, for sharing, you know, that and that we should use that. But what we did was we just embedded it into the document. And so you'll see that the table is here. So this will be your equity plan based on all of the information that you've gathered. And I just wanted to point out, so this is a little bit of duplication. So here, this is part of the equity plan that HFA put in their template. So this is the summary of family and staff input, which is also what you're going to put here. So it's just a little duplicative.
Sorry, Melanie. I'm seeing some questions in the chat. There was one question about should we remove the guidelines as we enter our narratives or keep them in there?
So my suggestion, and we can answer this question, but we are keeping track of all of the questions in the chat, and we've reserved time for the end of the presentation to go over all the questions. But no,
thank you.
You don't have to, yeah, no problem. We don't want you to remove the guidelines. All of the areas that you're not entering text, these are all locked, so you can't change those. So it'll just be part of your report. And we did that, you know, based on feedback from program staff and also some CA staff members, that it's much easier if everything can just be all in one document. And so that's why we made it this way, so that it's a template, it's the guidelines, and it's everything all in one. So again, just to show you, so here is the template that we embedded, and you can absolutely add more rows in here because this section is not locked, so that you can do that. And so then the last part is the equity plan review with Community Advisory Board and staff. And so just to highlight, that is a change. So in all the years before this year, you know, your ASR and equity plan needed to be shared with the Community Advisory Board, but the added component now is that it needs to also be shared with site staff. And so just some more prescriptive guidance for this year, what programs will do is consider feedback that you've received from your Community Advisory Board, you know, for this past contract year. But then you also have to share this with your staff. And so what we'd like you to do is, and Allison, jump in if I'm not explaining this clearly. What we want you to do is include, so you're going to have to save those meeting minutes. So this will be for the purposes of accreditation. You'll have to save those meeting minutes where you share your ASR and equity plan with staff. And then you'll also have to save the meeting minutes when you share it with your community advisory board. And then those for purposes of accreditation, those minutes will be uploaded into the SharePoint for your self-studies. For our purposes, we want you to, and this is in the ASR, so this guidance is included right in the ASR. For HFNY purposes, we want you to speak to any feedback received from staff and your advisory board in your quarterly report. And so it would be in the first quarter of your subsequent quarterly report. So the first quarter after you present the ASR to your advisory board. So hopefully that's clear.
Yeah,
ahead,
I would
Allison.
just add to that in the minutes. So I think this, you were saying share, which is right, like to document that in the minutes that you've shared the equity plan with staff and community advisory board members, but also that there is the feedback in those notes as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so I think that that's all that we wanted to say about the equity plan. So let's just, and then this is the template for, review, equity plan review with community advisory board. Next is staff retention and satisfaction. And so again, just, going along that same pattern. So, here are, what's required for the narrative. And then you just enter your text. So for the training section, we felt like, you all share trainings that staff participate in and or are offered to staff each quarter in your quarterly report. So here, and this is also based on, feedback and input from program staff, we thought you could just be a little bit more specific around just providing narrative on trainings that you provided that were relevant to your site's target population throughout the year. And then any trainings provided to staff related to child abuse and neglect, as well as a list of the DEIB trainings provided to staff throughout the year. And then again, any training needs that went unmet. And then here are DEIB focus questions to consider for that section. And then program highlights. So please share your successes and stories with us and include in your ASR. And then these are the governance and administration BPSs. And so again, same thing, just the DEIB focus questions, and then you plug that into the text boxes where you see narrative. And then the last piece is, program improvement plans for the next program year. And so, again, that's going to be based on your analysis and findings in this report. Identify priority areas to focus on or address outside of the equity plan. So that equity plan is really kind of focused on that cultural humility piece. So this is the piece where you would talk about overall plans for the next program year. So, CQI projects and things related to program improvement overall. So let me stop sharing so I can get back to the slides. Okay, you can see that? Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So then the next 3 slides are just some additional resources for drafting your ASR and equity plan. And so we just provided the links, but all of this can also be found on the HFNY website. So we included this just based on some of the questions that folks were sharing in their cohort or asking about in their accreditation cohort groups. And this is based on a presentation, Maggie, that you did a while back on community data and resources. Okay, so next is the accreditation tool, and a huge, huge thank you to Claudia and any members of her team that created this tool. They really created the bulk of this tool. The piece that we worked on was just including what areas of reporting are covered where. And so our team kind of just worked on plugging in the areas, the reporting areas in that last column of the, which you'll see in the HFNY reporting section. And so I don't know why, I feel like this isn't gonna work again. And so I might just have to share a different way. I don't know why it's not working. It just goes to the next slide. So I'm just going to stop sharing so that I can just pull up the actual tool in my files. So give me just a second. Oh, here. Oh no.
We can see it. We're just on DPS4 on the tab.
Hold on a second. You can all see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So just a brief overview. And again, if you have questions after the fact, you can absolutely bring them to your cohort groups. But here I just wanted to go. So Claudia created this guide, and so it kind of just walks you through what each tab is, what all the column headings mean. In each tab, you'll see a description. So I'm not going to read every single thing here. This is more like just the guide. So when you do have a chance to take a more detailed look after we send it out, start with the guide and read everything in there. And then again, just some updates to timeframes here. And Claudia, please feel free to jump in if you want to share more about anything that you created in the ways that it can be helpful. And so I'll go in and look at BPS1. So again, here's the standard, the description, any tips that are included, detail on what needs to be in the narrative. And then this is the column that we had to work to input, is just all of the areas that we are tracking this standard. And so again, lists out, trying to look here. So like, again, 1.4b, it's the description of what needs to be in the narrative, any tips, where that's tracked. So same here, recent practice, yes, the description. So that's really, I mean, there's a lot in this tool, but it really can be helpful in terms of like making sure you have everything that's required to be in the self-study. So you have, you know, the standard, the type, safety or essential, rating basis, rating documentation, recent practice, description. So it's everything is in here. Claudia, I don't know if there's anything more that you wanted to share about this, but feel free.
I will just add that it'll help you think about like where in the SharePoint, right? Like what folder that these different rating documentation items should go. So like, for example, if you're looking at that 4.3a, right, that's a policy. So you would obviously put it in the policy folder, the report, you know, so on and so forth. And then if you scroll over to where we track those items that are captured in the ASR, you would be able to upload your ASR and that will take care of that for you.
Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing and get back to wait, just give me one sec. Sorry. Okay. And then next is SharePoint. So Allison, you're going to take over from here, and it looks like this will work. So do you want me to just click and then you can just show them, or do you want me to hand it over to you?
I was going to show them how to upload. So I don't like, it might be easier for me to just share so that way I could walk through it without, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I'll stop sharing.
Okay, 1 second. Okay. So this is, whoops, I'm going to go back to home for a second. So when you log on to or sign into your SharePoint, this is what you'll see. For, you know, starting the process of putting together your self-study. And so it might look a little different for me because I am able to see all of the folders for all of the programs. I'm not sure from your view if it'll look different, but I'm going to pick on Albany. Sorry, Markia. So what you would do is go into your program folder. You should see it listed there. And then you'll see the subfolders in there that we talked about where you're going to start to put together all of the items that will make up your self-study. So I'm going to just show you how you would upload something, and I'll delete it after I do it, Markia, so that it's not in here. So when you're ready, like let's say you finish your ASR, you're ready to upload it to show that that's part of your self-study. You're going to go in here and just hit upload, and you're going to go to your files. So I'm going to just pick something to upload. So this is the timeline, which isn't obviously the ASR, but you would find your ASR and then click on that. Oops. What did I do? Did I add it to the wrong? Sorry. Yes, I did. Sorry, let me go back. I added it to the wrong thing. I added it to the outside folder instead of, I think, yes, I put it in here. Sorry, let me try that again. So you're going to go into your ASR folder, hit upload, find your file, right? So I'm using this as a random thing. And then just upload it into that folder. And that's it. So then, you know, if you wanted to go to start uploading your reports, same thing, you know, you would go into the additional reports folder to do MIS reports, click on that folder, click on upload, find your file for that report and upload it into that folder. It's pretty simple. If you don't have, and I'll go back in and delete those. If you are having trouble logging in, if you can reach out to Claudia, like if you're if you're unable to get into, you know, to sign in, if you're having trouble with your sign in, then you can reach out to her for questions about like uploading and your files and things like that. You can reach out to your program contract manager to be able to assist you with the uploading or questions around the documentation. I'm just deleting these so I don't forget. So that's it on, and then Claudia had put the SharePoint access. You can email her. For that, she put that in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know why this did that. Hold on a sec. All right. So just some helpful reminders. Accreditation session 3 is on the website, and that has more detailed guidance on drafting equity plans, including examples of summary of input from staff and families, equity plan examples, and review of equity plan examples. So you can refer to those and refer to any of the previous Accreditation 101s, you know, whenever you want, so that it can really be helpful in drafting your narratives, in uploading and ensuring you have everything needed for your self-studies. And then just like Allison just shared, for any questions related to setting up an Outlook account or access to SharePoint, reach out to Claudia. All other questions related to interfacing with SharePoint, just reach out to your OCFS, your Accreditation OCFS program contract manager. So by your next office hours, please reach out to your Accreditation PCM with any questions that can't wait, or any questions that we don't get to today, although I think we have time to be able to get to everyone's questions. Please, please, please make sure that you're going in and responding to any of your Accreditation PCM's requests. Again, I know we shared, you know, that it's not required to attend, but you know, just so that they, you know, can just kind of keep things moving along with sending out emails and scheduling, you know, meetings. Just please respond. So if it's like, oh, I'm not going to be able to attend, you can just let them know that. And then just another further reminder to make sure that your contract dates are updated with this current year in MIS. So those of you that aren't sure how to do that, reach out to your contract managers and they can walk you through that. So questions. So we'll go through questions now, but then also if you have additional questions, you can reach out to us or reach out to your Accreditation program contract managers.
Okay.
And so we can, questions.
I'm gonna go through the questions that came up in the chat. One of them from Trina was, why can't you upload the program's training resume instead of writing everything out for the report?
So to answer that, Trina, we in the ASR, if you look back at what we have in there for the narrative, we are not asking you to upload or speak to every training that was provided to staff in the ASR. We just want you to speak to what we were really prescriptive in what we wanted you to share around training in the ASR, in the narrative piece. Does that help clarify, Tina?
I think so. I thought I read that it said what training needs, role needs, and I thought it said, maybe I read that wrong.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like the quarterly report where we'll ask like what training needs went unmet. And it's really just a summary. There are specific things that we do want you to speak to, like the child abuse and neglect, any sort of trainings around that. And then the DEIB or trainings for that professional development, skill development for staff, like a summary of that. It's very similar to the last ASR, except, you know, we're not asking you to list out everything like Melanie said. And if you, when like you read the ASR, if you still have questions about that, you know, you can reach out to us to let us know as you're going through and spending the time to look at each areas. Like if there's things that come up after the call, we can certainly connect to talk you through that. I did
Okay.
want to back up because Esther had a question before that about copying and pasting the boilerplate narratives or having it in the guidelines is enough. I would recommend copying it and pasting it into your narrative so it becomes part of that and not just leaving it in there. I'm just thinking, you know, that way it's along with everything else.
So along those lines, I guess I just want to know, so are we listing the training, just simply listing them, or are we supposed to be doing more of a narrative around why we offered that training to our staff, because it's maybe part of our equity plan or something?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, do you want to pull it back up, Mel, so that we could take a look at that section?
Yep. Let me just pull it up this way. I want to like figure out why the link didn't work, but give me just 1 second here to pull up the ASR somewhere. Just taking a minute. Hold on. Sorry. Okay. Share screen. Okay, here we are. So let's go to the training piece. So here, please provide narrative on trainings provided to staff that were relevant to your site's target population throughout the year. Please also provide a list of trainings provided to staff related to child abuse and neglect, and a list of all DEIB trainings provided to staff throughout the year. Summarize any additional interpersonal and skill development opportunities to support staff in their role. And then summarize any training needs that went unmet from the last year and how the statewide system or CA can support these needs. Identify any staff training and technical assistance needs for the upcoming year. So instead of having you list out all of the trainings that were provided or offered to staff throughout the year, we really just want you to kind of be a little bit, provide a little bit more context and a little bit more, I guess, of an analysis of what trainings like kind of really stuck out for your site that you provided to staff related to child abuse and neglect, the EIB trainings. You know, and just to point out too, so like if you take a look when you all have a chance, because we just shared the accreditation tool, but if you take a look at the accreditation tool for BPS 11, because there are other things that you have to submit for accreditation. And so that's really prescriptive. That tool is going to help you to see what you have to submit. So like for the wraparound trainings, the 6 month trainings, you have to submit a training log, but that's going to go into SharePoint. That's not going to go into your ASR. Does that make sense, Trina? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense. I guess I still don't understand now what we're actually writing. What is the narrative if it's not listing the trainings?
So
Is this
for
like, I guess I
example-
want to,
Yeah, so for example, let's say that your staff went to a training on like we have one that's called like Bridges Out of Poverty, for example. I don't know, I'm just thinking about like
okay, yeah,
a site's target population around maybe low income families, right? So your staff went to that. So, you would share like that was one of the trainings, like in the narrative format that, was part of why it was important for your staff to attend that is it's relevant to the community that you're serving. Maybe they did some additional like breastfeeding trainings because, you're working with, families, for breastfeeding. Like you don't have to do every single one, but I guess it's like, what is relevant to the population, like when you think about what trainings have been offered based on the needs of the population. And then it is prescriptive for the two other items where it talks about child abuse and neglect. So we really do want to see what you did, what staff did for those annual trainings. It might be one that every staff attended, or, based on schedules, it might have been more than one that you sent to staff. So then you would talk about what those two trainings that, one or two that staff did to address the child abuse and neglect best practice standards for that annual training. And then the same with the section on DEIB. So, what trainings, and those might be multiple, right? So based on, what your staff were interested in, or, opportunities for their growth and development around DEIB. So what trainings were offered to them as part of their skill development and working with families to ensure that there's that DEIB focus.
okay.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah, and I feel like, just again, this is where like those DEIB questions are really so helpful, because if you take a look at these are really going to help you to put some like context and really thought and analyze it, analytical ways like in creating your narratives for those pieces. So if you look at some of these questions, it's going to help you to kind of hone in on what you're going to provide in your narrative for this piece.
So other,
Okay.
other questions, I'm gonna group, these came in from Esther. I'm just gonna group them together. Some more are comment too. So the process for submitting the ASR to CMS has not changed. This is going to be a very large PDF document to upload. So we just want to make sure you do not have a limit on the size of the document.
As far as I know, we don't have a limit on the size. I mean, I can confirm that, or we can confirm. But yeah, it's just uploaded into the other contract document section in CMS. I don't think that there's a limit, like on the number of pages or anything.
And then is the additional report folder only for MIS reports?
I mean, I don't think there's like a hard fast rule about that. Allison, do you? I mean, reports and any other, I guess anything that doesn't fit into any other folders.
Maybe. So, will, it really is going along with what's required that's where that tool will, help, right? So thinking about what is considered a report, right? So I'm trying to think if there's other things outside of what's in that tool that would be considered a report that would go into that, folder, to the, additional reports. So, I'm trying to think, but I feel like it would mostly be the MIS, reports that you would put in that report folder.
And is the additional report folder? Oh, no, I just said that one. So the next question also from Esther is the personnel folder for the evidence required on BPS 9 or just the list of staff?
No, so it's not just the list of staff. It is going to be those things that are required for the self-study. So for example, those job descriptions with the minimum criteria, resumes for staff that you'll have to upload into that personnel section. We will need a narrative of your agency's EOE. So you can work with your human resources department to get that narrative to be able to upload that. And then there are some additional, like the actual personnel files will be reviewed on site from HFA.
Yeah, so the only standard 9 BPS that's in the ASR is the staff retention and satisfaction, so 9.4. And so all of the other information for BPS 9 that's required for the self-study for accreditation, it will go into the ASR. And then just a reminder, you always can, so the tool that we shared is going to be super helpful for that. You kind of like, the way I see it is I like cross-check as I'm working at each standard and uploading it to SharePoint and, drafting my ASR, I would just be kind of doing a cross-check for myself to make sure, okay, did I put this in? But you can also always just refer to the tables of documentation in the BPS manual after each standard, and that's going to show you. So anywhere where you see, well, almost anywhere where you see submit narrative, we worked to have that in what you would put in the ASR. And then all of the other pieces are going to be uploaded into SharePoint under those different folders.
And then this came in from Dina and it was answered. I'll read out on it. HFSI submitted other emails to be added to access the SharePoint during last month's accreditation, but we still do not have access. Can other emails still be added? And there was a response, which was absolutely, emails can be added at any time. And so you should send Claudia, which would like to be added. And Claudia provided her email, which we will provide again. That's related to SharePoint.
Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna read this. It's from Joe. One year I tried to submit the ASR and the file size was too large for CMS. I had to compress the file size, and then it uploaded. I don't remember what the limit was. Also, it might have changed since then. That was probably 3 years ago. So just FYI.
Thanks, Joe. What I'll do is I'll reach out to our folks who kind of oversee CMS and check on that.
From Nora, if our EOE is included in a job description, do we need a separate document listing it?
I would say yes, only because we would want to make it really clear and easy for the peer reviewers to find that. So when you're uploading it, you can do one as the job description and then maybe just highlight that EOE in that and upload it as the EOE. Just because, you know, like what we hear is that the more that things are like in front of them, you know, the easier it is, like, so that they don't have to go around searching for things, that if we're labeling it accurately, which was something else I forgot to say with the SharePoint with the labeling. So when we're done, I'll just go back to that quick, because on that home page, we give some instructions on you know, how to label certain things.
I didn't see anything else in the chats. Are there other questions?
And feel free to come off mute if you want to talk. We were just using the chat during the presentation, but if you want to come off mute to ask questions, you certainly can too. So yeah, Joe, we'll verify what the limit is on that to make sure we don't start having issues when it has to be uploaded for claiming in CMS. So now, do you just either, do you want to let me share quick, or do you want to go into the SharePoint?
Oh, I just stopped sharing, so if you want to share quick and go back in, that's fine.
Okay, I forgot to and I think it's important just to highlight this too, because this will make it easier. So you can see that. So when you open it up, you'll see that Claudia and her team put a little tip in here or direction around how to label the policies. So making sure that when you're uploading your policies that they're labeled by standard number. So the example would be 13A policy or BPS 1 policy if you're going to keep all policies for the first order standard as one document. So we talked about sometimes what happens is some of the policies are kind of, you know, grouped together. So like, you know, maybe the 4s are all on one document. So when you go to upload the 4s, you would put it as BPS 4 policy. If you have them separated out by that specific, each specific standard, then you would want to make sure that you're labeling them accurately, like 13A policy, and uploading them that way. And that'll just make it really easy to, like we said, find what policies are needed for each one of the standards, and not necessarily us, but you know, the peer reviewers. And just to kind of go back to like the shift in the way in which we're uploading and utilizing our documents, because HFA, when they come to central administration, they will be doing a peripheral look at the self-studies, really making sure that all of the items that are required as part of the self-study are included. So, you know, we're asking you to submit those by January 5th so that we could go in, you know, as you're uploading things, making sure that all of the required information is uploaded into that SharePoint, so that when they are here on site, that they're able to see that everybody has what they need for the self-study. When the 16 sites are selected for their site visit, that's when those peer reviewers will be coming and doing that deeper dive into the self-study and actually scoring those components of the self-study. So at that time, for those 16 sites, and you know, we can talk about this later down the road, we will have to shift a little bit in the way that you present your self-study to the peer reviewers. But we felt like, given that, you know, you create this ASR that has all of these elements, you know, a majority of them in it, You know, your quarterly reports have information in there that's part of the self-study, your data reports, so on and so forth, that we were, instead of copying and pasting into each individual standard, that we would use the documents that are collected for HFNY for that larger overview of the self-studies. But for the 16 sites, we will be shifting and moving to like a different format for the 16 for your self-study. And Nora, you have I got noticed that you have your hand raised. Go ahead, you can jump in.
Hi, sorry.
That's okay. You don't have to apologize.
This just came to my mind because as we were reviewing the ASR guidelines, I saw under staff feedback that there's a section about staff who have left the program.
Mhm.
And while I have like the informal data of what I've gathered in conversations with those staff who have left, I'm wondering if we can have like anonymous aggregate results of the HFNY exit survey, and if that's something we can include in our ASR as like part of an analysis of why staff have left their roles.
That I am not sure about. Oh,
I'm
Kristen's gonna
gonna-
jump in.
Yeah, I'm gonna respond to that. The challenge with those exit surveys is the numbers are often very small and the response rate is only about like 35 to 37%. And so in order to share that at the site level, data would be potentially very revealing. And we don't want to compromise the confidentiality of that information. We do, let Allison know if there's any kind of egregious or unsafe information that comes in through those. But unfortunately, because of the nature of the, doing surveys and how we have specified the information will be handled and shared, we can't really break that down by site level.
And just to clarify, Nora, the past staff who have left, that's for a 3 rating.
Okay, so for 2, I'm sure we'll be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just, just in case you're wondering.
Sorry, so this just came to my mind too. And obviously like my host agency does an exit survey as well. So I can always get some more feedback in that area. But I think it would be interesting. And I know this is like adding to everybody's plate, but like as a statewide system, looking at the general reasons why maybe people are leaving the field, I think it would have it could lend itself to a greater conversation about like the role, the job, responsibilities, those sorts of things. But again, completely acknowledging that like we are in the busiest time of the year. I just think it would be interesting feedback to look at this job field as a whole.
Nora, we can, once there's enough information or for a full year period, we can share the system-wide information, right? And have a conversation about what those patterns are that we're seeing. Similar to how Margaret a few years ago took information from both the last worker survey and then looked at the exit survey data, right? Kind of as a whole to kind of see where are we seeing similar things in terms of MIS, data versus what we're getting from feedback, right? And are they similar people? Are they different people? And so those are certainly things that we can have conversations about at the statewide level. Although not at the individual program level. But typically what we see is the reasons are similar. They're the things that we generally know, the pay opportunities for, more pay elsewhere, and some other challenges, potentially related to, moving on, further developing, their employment skill sets, those kinds of things.
And not that it's staff that left, but we do just a worker satisfaction survey as a statewide system. And actually, Margaret, we had a central administration meeting yesterday. Margaret presented on that. So you'll be getting some information about what the outcome of that is, which, you know, some of that information you could probably assume are reasons why staff leave, right? Like some of the things that Kristen just mentioned, you know, around really the pay or, you know, other types of opportunities for staff. So yes, that will be coming in terms of the overall satisfaction for the statewide system.
And so, you know, like Allison just said, we just got some, as central administration, just reviewed some of the data on the most recent worker survey. And so Margaret is going to be doing some additional analyses because it led to some really great discussions within CA. And then once we take a look at that information, you know, we're going to bring it to a variety of different my words are not wording. I think the REACH group is going to have some conversations about it, and then we'll bring it either at a statewide leadership or a regional meeting to share with all of you to think about how we might go about addressing some of the challenges that we're seeing. And we have updated some of the information from previous years that we collected through the worker survey to, if you don't know already, to incorporate some of the diversity, equity, and belonging. And, you know, so we can have those conversations and see how the integration of best practice standard 5 is going to help shape some of that work that's going to be happening throughout the system as well. So to be continued, and we will be sharing that information.
Allison, can I also say something?
Absolutely.
So the intent of the 101s was initially to kind of start with the self-study preparation. And I'm not sure if this is crystal clear, but in passing one day within a conversation with HFA, it was mentioned that they wouldn't, during the CA site visit, wouldn't go in depth into your self-studies. So that's when Allison really started pushing back and saying, then, well, why do we have to do self-studies if we're doing these annual checks as a system? And it seems that in certain multi-sites across the country, they don't have the checks in place that we have, like the ASR, the quarterlies, the site visits, all of that. So the function of the self-study prior to the visit to CA is to get CA kind of updated on what each of their programs are doing outside of New York. In New York, there's already a system in place. So that's why there's been this shift from let's focus on the self-study to now, okay, let's show them how you do the ASRs, how you do the quarterlies, what gets looked at site visits. All right, so a little bit of oops, we know that we're pulling the rug from under your feet from where this started to where we are now. So apologies about that, but also always make sure to ask questions, because it wasn't in, if we hadn't asked these questions, if we hadn't like pumped the brakes with HFA and said, hold on, what are you actually looking at when you come to visit CA? We wouldn't have known that those self-studies kind of just sit there and don't really get looked at the way they get looked at when the peer reviewers will go to the 16 sites to visit you all. All right, so the idea is kind of putting a different kind of frame to the work that you already do in case they do end up kind of peripherally flipping through the documentation. But in having all of those documents in place from all of you, we can say to HFA, look, this is all the work that our PCMs and our training TAs and everyone in CA and the programs do on a yearly basis. So just to clarify that.
Thank you, Claudia. That was much more eloquent than I described it. But yeah, so yeah, it really would have been an activity of copying and pasting. So we were like, well, we do this already, and these are the ways that we do a self-study here in New York. So we wanted to use what you're doing, but like I said, the 16 sites that are selected will need to work with you for that, like really specific format for the peer reviewers, because they, at that time, they will be really digging into your self-study and actually scoring it.
So does that mean for those 16 who are selected, it will look more like the traditional study? Okay.
Yeah. And it will be the copying and pasting, right? You'll have an opportunity to update reports, right? Because maybe you don't want to give reports that are already in there, which, you know, we had done last time. Like you submitted part of your self-study, we gave feedback, then you updated things. So yes, that for the 16, it will be that traditional where it outlines like all of the folders with all of the standards, but in the same format in terms of SharePoint. That's how we'll do that. For those 16 sites, it'll be in SharePoint, it'll be by best practice standard, and it will be like for the ASR, copying and pasting into those individual folders. But we felt like to make 43 programs do an exercise of copying and pasting when, you know, it doesn't, like, that's not, they're not going to be digging deep into those. We felt like we'll work with the 16 to, you know, kind of reformat their self-study when the time comes.
Thank you.
I just wanted to share, so thank you, Matt. Matt Newman reached out to one of the folks in CMS to ask about the data limit question, and she shared that there shouldn't be any problems with uploading larger files, but that if programs do encounter issues, you know, to let her know right away. So if you do encounter an issue, just reach out to your program contract manager, you know, if you're trying to upload into CMS and it's giving you a problem, and then they'll notify CMS and we'll kind of get it, we'll address it. So thanks, Matt, for reaching out.
Yeah, no problem. And Natasha, in her response, also stated that having any electronic signatures can be a barrier to getting it uploaded, and that if you do have issues with uploading it, that you can go through Adobe and compress it, and then the CMS system should accept it. So, but again, just like Melanie said, if you run into any issues, reach out to your program contract manager.
So any other questions?
I haven't gotten on SharePoint since we first kind of went through it. But I just got 2 emails that said quality assurance grid master. So I'm guessing that has to do with this, and it's saying that I don't have access. So I'm not sure if that's going to affect other people or if it's just me.
I'm not sure what the quality assurance grid is.
Okay.
Is that coming from SharePoint?
Yeah, it's no reply at sharepointonline.com. I got 2 of them and they're both sharing permissions, but when I go to open it, it's not allowing me permissions. So
Claudia, any idea why she's not
The
able
name
to?
of the document shared is Quality Assurance Grid Master.
Mhm. That's not,
That's not us.
okay, good to know.
I just went and checked to see if someone had dumped a file named Quality Assurance Grid Master into the bigger folder, and it's not there.
Okay,
Because you, like Allison said at the beginning, each of you have access to your programs folders. But let me double check to see if someone put something into your folder, Sarah.
okay.
I didn't
I
do that.
swear I didn't touch it. It was Albany that I was playing around with. So I don't think I did anything.
And hopefully I didn't. I didn't go into SharePoint, but and out, I suppose.
And I'm a little embarrassed to ask this because I should know this, but I have SharePoint through my agency. And I think that I set up the SharePoint with the same email address. So when I'm looking to log back into SharePoint for Healthy Families New York, how am I doing that exactly? I'm sorry.
You have the tool? Do you have the accreditation tool? Was that sent out?
Not yet. No, after the presentation, we'll send the slides and the tool out to everyone.
Because that has the address in case
Okay.
you lose it.
Okay. So you'll get that right after this,
Okay,
everyone.
I'll look for it then.
I'm
Thank
putting
you.
in an address, see if you can access it. I'm not sure if you can, but just see.
And then, Sarah, please don't apologize for asking questions. I feel like I am the most technologically challenged person. But you can always, like, once you get the address, you can just make it a favorite, and then it'll be easy for you to access.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Sure. Does anybody else have any other questions about anything that we shared today?
All right, so next time we meet will be July 10th. And at that time, we're really going to focus on the MIS reports. There's been a lot of changes to the MIS, as you know, so we're going to take a look at some of the changes as required reports for the self-study. So we'll take a look at those, and they'll really focus on all the reports as much as we can get through, but also like looking at the 10, 11, and the 6s, because that is the BPSs that we'll be focusing on, but a lot of that are MIS reports anyway, but we'll also be digging into some of the additional MIS reports that have shifted or been added, updated, so on and so forth. So I'm excited for that one because I know there's been a lot of changes and it'll be helpful to walk through that as well. And these will be recorded. So if you're not able to attend, you can go back and take a look at them. So if there's nothing else, I think that's it.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. So I know we have a couple people still joined, but maybe they are just forgot to log out. But we can probably stop recording now, right?
Yeah, I was just saying that, Mo.
On
On mute.
Oh, I'm on mute. Okay, I can stop recording.